All right, let's try something. Picture a world, maybe around 1774, American independence. It's really not the main goal for most colonists. Not at all.
It's actually kind of shocking when you think about it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Their deepest desire wasn't revolution. It was, well, figuring things out with Britain.
Exactly. It really reframes the whole story. For so many, independence wasn't something they jumped at. It was, I guess, the only path left open to them in the end.
Mm-hmm. And our source material, like Igniting Liberty, really backs this up. You look at the Stamp Act Congress back in '65.
Right.
The delegates weren't talking rebellion. They were petitioning Parliament, as loyal subjects.
Loyal subjects, yeah. They just wanted their rights as British citizens. That's what they were asking for.
Precisely. They were hoping, genuinely hoping, for some kind of deal. Protect their liberties, sure, but without totally wrecking their society or their economy.
But King George, Parliament, they just weren't biting, were they? They refused to really negotiate.
And that refusal, well, that effectively just snuffed out those hopes for reconciliation. That's what really changed the game.
So that's our deep dive today. We're exploring this incredible journey. How did a group of people who saw themselves as loyal subjects, how did they become revolutionaries?
Yeah, what happened?
Our mission is to get into the how and the why of that massive shift, looking really closely at Enlightenment philosophy and also those powerful religious movements.
And what's so fascinating, I think, is how these changes were tied to ideas that were, frankly, pretty radical back then. You have to ask, where did they even get these ideas? This way of thinking about liberty that wasn't really endorsed back in Britain? The answer, it's the Enlightenment, big time.
Okay, let's dig into that. Who are we talking about here? Which thinkers? Because these weren't just like philosophical games. They directly fueled that feeling that their rights were being trampled.
You absolutely have to start with John Locke. Foundational.
Ah.
Think about how bold his ideas were. He didn't just question the king. He basically dismantled the whole divine right of king's idea.
Wow.
He argued that a ruler's legitimacy comes from the people. Consent of the governed, not God, not birthright.
Huge.
And crucially, he said, people have natural rights.
Yeah.
Rights like life, liberty, and property. You just have them because you exist.
They're inherent, not granted by a government.
Exactly. Granted by a creator, maybe, but not the government. So the government can't just take them away. I mean, that flew directly in the face of centuries of monarchy and inherited power.
Okay, so Locke gives us consent, natural rights. That's powerful. And then you have thinkers like Rousseau building on that with the social contract idea.
Precisely. Rousseau adds this layer. If power resides with the people, they sort of enter into a contract with their government.
Right, a contract.
And the deal is people give up a little bit of freedom, but only if the government protects their fundamental rights.
Ah, so there's a condition.
A big one. It raises the question, what if the government breaks the contract? What if it makes laws the people don't consent to? Like, say, taxation without representation.
Okay. I see where this is going.
Then, according to this thinking, those laws might be null and void. The government loses its legitimacy. And you can imagine how that idea resonated with colonists feeling ignored by Parliament.
Okay, so Locke gives them the rights, Rousseau, the contract that can be broken. But how do you actually, set up a government that doesn't become tyrannical? How do you protect those liberties?
Right. That's where Montesquieu comes in, Baron de Montesquieu. His blueprint for a republic was incredibly influential.
What was his big idea?
Separation of powers. Don't put all the power in one place. Split it up. Executive, legislative, judicial, distinct branches.
Checks and balances.
Exactly. Each branch has ways to check the power of the others. It was a design, an engineering blueprint, really, meant to ensure liberty wasn't just declared on paper, but actually preserved in practice.
So these philosophers, they're laying the intellectual groundwork, giving the colonists a framework, a language for their complaint.
A coherent framework, yeah. For demanding self-governance.
Yeah.
But it wasn't just about reason and philosophy. There was another really powerful force at work.
No, definitely not just philosophy. Because religion played a massive role too, right? In shaping how Americans saw themselves, this idea of being a people blessed with liberty.
Absolutely. The Great Awakening, for instance, that period of intense religious revival.
Yeah.
It created this spiritual energy, this fervor, where many people started to feel that any threat to their liberty was also like a threat to their spiritual well-being.
An interesting connection.
It really was. You see it in figures like Sarah Osborne, a deeply religious woman.
Tell me about her.
Her diaries, especially around 1767, praying for Rhode Islanders.
Yeah.
They showed this profound belief that God had a plan, a divine plan for their moral and political salvation.
So God was on their side, essentially.
That was the feeling, that God favored the American cause, would protect liberty for the faithful. It was a common sentiment.
And then you have someone like Phyllis Wheatley, an enslaved African-American poet. Her work is incredible.
Truly remarkable. She wove together religious and political themes so powerfully.
How so?
Well, in her poem about the preacher George Whitefield, for example, she subtly but clearly suggests that liberty, both the spiritual kind and, actual physical freedom, was the divine right for everyone.
Including the enslaved. Wow, that's a powerful message, especially given who she was and when she was writing.
Incredibly powerful. So these religious feelings, they gave the movement a moral and spiritual backbone. It wasn't just politics. It became almost a sacred cause.
Makes sense.
But here's the thing. These big philosophical ideas, even the strong religious sentiments, they were mostly circulating among the elite, right? The educated folks, guys in the Continental Congress.
Right. Not necessarily the average person on the street.
Not automatically, no. They didn't just sort of magically filter down to everyone.
Okay, so if these big ideas were mostly with the elites, how did they reach the everyday farmer, the shopkeeper? How did they get stirred up? That seems like a crucial step.
It was the crucial step, and that's where Thomas Paine comes crashing in. His pamphlet, Common Sense, in 1776. That was the catalyst.
Common Sense. Everyone knows the name.
And for good reason. Paine was a master communicator. A disruptor, really.
What did he do differently?
He just used plain, direct language, no complex philosophical jargon. He argued forcefully for independence, straight up.
And he used the Bible, too, didn't he?
Yes, he used biblical examples people understood to show why monarchy was, foolish. He called it, I think, the most barefaced falsity ever imposed on mankind. Strong stuff.
Wow. So he took these Enlightenment ideas.
Yeah, he took those ideas, wrapped them in this fiery, accessible language, and just ignited the population. He turned that elite conversation into like a wildfire spreading through the colonies.
And people responded.
Massively. Common Sense became an instant bestseller, even though some, like John Adams, had criticisms initially.
Why did it resonate so much, do you think?
It articulated what tons of ordinary colonists were feeling, but maybe couldn't quite put into words. It just clicked. It led to this huge shift where suddenly independence wasn't just an option. It felt like the only way forward.
From British subjects to Americans.
Exactly. And that popular feeling, really fanned into flame by Paine, led directly to the Second Continental Congress saying, okay, we need a declaration. Let's get Jefferson on it.
And the Declaration itself reflects all this.
Oh, absolutely. It's steeped in those Enlightenment ideas. We talked about natural rights, the social contract. It formally stated their intention to be independent. Accepted July 2nd, made public July 4th, 1776.
So let's try and pull these threads together. Looking back at everything, what really stands out about how these ideas, both philosophical and spiritual, managed to reshape things so dramatically, from loyalty to outright revolution?
Yeah, it's quite a mix. On one side, you have the thinkers, Locke, Rousseau, Montesquieu. They provided the intellectual firepower, right?
The logic, the arguments.
Exactly. Consent of the governed, those unalienable natural rights, the whole idea of a social contract, and even a practical plan for government with separated powers. They gave colonists the language and the reasoning to say, hey, this isn't right, and demand change.
But it wasn't just intellectual, as you said. That religious element was key, too. How did faith really add fuel to that fire?
Well, the Great Awakening, and people like Osborne writing in her diaries or Wheatley in her poetry, they fostered this deep-seated belief that liberty wasn't just a political preference. It was a God-given right, a divine gift.
Making the fight almost a holy cause.
Pretty much, yeah. It gave the whole movement a moral weight, a spiritual urgency that resonated way beyond just the educated elite. It gave everyday people a profound, almost sacred reason to resist.
Okay, so you've got the philosophy providing the structure, the faith providing the moral conviction.
Yeah.
But it still needed that spark to reach everyone, right? That's Paine again.
That's Paine. He's the translator, the amplifier. He took those complex ideas, stripped them down, made them punchy, relatable, used biblical references everyone got.
He made it common sense.
He literally did. He didn't just explain why independence was a good idea. He made it feel urgent, necessary, undeniable for the average person. That paved the way for Jefferson's Declaration. It wasn't just announcing something new. It was formalizing what a huge number of people now felt in their bones.
It really is an amazing story when you lay it out like that. This powerful blend of deep thinking, intense spiritual belief, and just incredibly effective communication. It genuinely transformed people. Loyal subjects became revolutionaries, building a nation on these very
It
ideals.
makes you think, doesn't it? If the very bedrock of American liberty was forged in that dynamic tension, that interplay between philosophical reason and spiritual conviction, what does that tell us about our conversations today? The ongoing debates we have about balancing individual rights and the authority of the government.